Okay.
All right, what up, guys? We are live right now. It's just me and Brian. Hopefully, we're waiting on Jason. It's Thursday. It's winter. It's hard to know what day it is. Jason, do you know the date? Sorry, Brian.
The date is the 23rd.
Did you know what that looking? So it's the NFL Fantasy Today show. We just had the divisional round. We finally had a good weekend of football. Oh my God, I think every game was pretty good. Was the Houston KC game better than any game from the wildcard round?
I don't. Probably. I'm trying to think what the best game was there.
The Washington, Baker, Tampa, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very good weekend of football. Stressful for those who had a dog in the fight, but fun for those who did not.
Yeah, it was classic cold weather football. Really not shootout style, unless the one game had enough shootouts for everybody. But I mean, I give that A+ weekend. It was great. So we got 2 games left this weekend. We had a couple heavyweight fights. I guess we call that Washington Philly heavyweight fight, right? But like Rocky, where I guess Philly is actually Apollo Creed and Washington is Rocky.
Yeah, it's they both know each other well. They 1-1 in the year, so it should be interesting. Just when you play someone the third time, I feel like the third time playing them, everyone kind of knows where they have their advantages and disadvantages. So it makes game planning harder, and it's probably just going to end up in a closer game than probably the first matchup is.
Yeah, they say that thing is hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, but sometimes I think that's just a football saying. But so we're gonna look back at this past weekend, look forward to the next weekend, talk a little fantasy, just go wherever it takes us. So Brian, congrats, made the championship round. How you feeling? What would you give Philly's grades in that game?
They win. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we hear Jalen Hurts tore something in his knee over the weekend. But I think he's playing either way. So that scares me just because the tush push, I think, is pretty dependent on him. Or, I mean, not dependent on him, but it's quite useful with him. And if you have a guy who's got a busted up knee, that makes it a little more difficult to run. So when it's 3rd and 1, we don't have an automatic go deep play, and then we know we're going to get it the next play. I think that is pretty impactful, but
you also got the best running back in football, so it's like it's like
our offensive line
you got the ace of diamonds. I mean,
yeah, the MVP of the team is the offensive line, like by far. So can't complain about that.
So anything? Would you think they pivot off season? Like it's AJ Brown, Devontae Smith are like redundant now. AJ's definitely pissed off. They're not really throwing. They don't need to throw. Cold weather football outside in Philly, right? It's like maybe you just get the Buffalo approach, just get a bunch of kind of spare part wide receivers who can all block and maybe get open a bit.
I mean, all their receivers are kind of locked up for a while. Like AJ and Devonta are locked up for a while contractually, so it doesn't make any sense to do that. I mean, I think they just I don't think there's going to be much movement on the offensive end. I don't think they're going to, it seemed like coming into the year, they tried to get a 3rd wide receiver in Dotson, and they've been kind of trying to get a 3rd one for a while. But if Saquon's going to be this dominant, which I don't think he will be moving forward, I just this is a great year of, he was banged up a little last year, probably didn't put it all in, just fully rejuvenated, healthy. And the offensive line also stayed healthy. So I don't think we're going to get that luck moving forward as much. But, I mean, he'll still be a stud. You're not going to be able to expect 2,000 yards, obviously, again. But you'd be happy with 12 to 1,500.
12 maybe, yeah. I think it's the curse of 381 or something. It was like running backs who get that many carries or touches always fall apart. He's got to be approaching that since he's got almost 100 in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, he's definitely hit that and gone through it, but we'll see. I mean, I don't think they're going to change much. They definitely threw the ball a little bit more in the regular season, and the not as good of, or the better weather. I mean, in that type of snow game, you saw it with the Rams. It's just you get balls that should easily be caught were not being caught. So I think that has helped the Eagles a good amount. If they were playing in a dome, I don't know if they'd be here.
Okay, yeah, that's good. It's just so weird. I was talking about it on our Monday pod. It's like we got all these explosive quarterbacks. I think Mahomes started the trend who just aren't being explosive anymore, right? Run
Hmm.
control, possession control, check downs, move the chains, don't make mistakes. And now Buffalo's followed that mold. All right, I was doing some research in the yesterday. Like they had, I think they're the fourth worst or the fourth rush heavy team in the league. Right, Detroit was in it. They were running the ball. Now Philly's probably their playoff. What's their rush pass? Like 60-40?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but it's probably around that. I think, but like, if you're trying to win football and you have a good defense, like, why? It almost seems like the Eagles' offense or coaching and pretty much has told Hurts, whatever you do, I don't care if you get sacked. I don't even care if it's a safety like we saw. Just don't throw an interception. Don't turn the ball over.
And well, he took the bad sacks. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's a copycat league, right? NBA is the same way. I'm always just trying to look ahead. Like, do you think now running backs are back in vogue? It's like, oh, get the O line, get the running back, get the defense, and then you can just, as long as you're solid, make the playoffs. You can have it. You can have worse than Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are going to be the rounds where we kind of see like, I mean, still, if you look at it, Hurts has proven he can do it in the playoffs. He was the better QB in the last Super Bowl he was in against Mahomes, just in that game. And then like Jaden Daniels has just been going off. And then you have Josh Allen and Mahomes, obviously, who are just studs. So like they did something right. Like we still have four good to amazing quarterbacks. It's not like we have a Sam Darnold or someone else in it with just great running. Like I still think the QB matters. I just think given the weather and all that, you have the tougher teams have made it through.
Okay, can we deal with that squeak?
Yeah.
um, huh. But so yeah, it's just it's sorry, I'm just getting text. It's just funny because it's like they got Josh Allen, who's been one of the best gunslingers, in the league, and then they just you saw that last game, he had 127 passing yards, right? They kept him stable all game. They were running James Cook and everyone else against a really good run D, and they didn't really let him run the stable, and they ended up winning the game. They got kind of lucky, but I think this is football heading back towards the run game.
I mean, I think you're just always going to see like the zig and the zag, where maybe like with Mahomes when he first started, it was all like he was the breaker of the cover three defense, where it's just like, all right, we're just going to go long and big plays. And then you slowly see teams are going too high again to kind of try to stop all the big plays. So now it's okay, we're going to do the dink and dunk offense. And then, okay, now that we have all these corners and D backs out, oh, I realize I can bully you with the great O line and running backs. And then probably the defenses will get bigger, and then we'll go back to big plays and just kind of continue that cycle.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it seems like maybe we're back towards that big like. Are there any big running back free agents like this past offseason, right? We saw Josh Jacobs, we saw Saquon, we saw Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, all moved, right? Maybe like running backs now get paid.
I'm trying to think of any potential free agent. I mean, I feel like a lot of the big names came out last year or this past year. Obviously, we saw all the movement. I don't really think many of them signed 1-year deals unless someone just gets cut as a cap casualty.
Yeah, I think like Jacobs could have been, but they'll probably bring him back. Okay, what about the draft then? Maybe now running backs. Remember who's Trent Richardson? He was the right that Colts took in the first round and was a bust, but they were able to trade him for a first, and that seemed like it ended the first round running back for a while.
Yeah, I think Genty might get picked at. I think you've kind of seen running backs. You've seen it with McCaffrey, and now seen it with Barkley. Is if you're an elite running back and you go to a great team, it can bring you over the top. If you're an elite running back and you go to a crap team, like they're not really going to do anything. Like look at the Jets with Breece Hall. Like he's proven that he has the talent, but then he hasn't really done much there. Everyone knows that he's talented. He's still probably going to be drafted in the first round next year in fantasy drafts. But all right, now, sorry, my dog's just rubbing his butt on the floor. But yeah, now I think if the Jets do better or like get a better O-line and start winning more, I think you'll see more success there. So like if Genty or one of the big running backs in the draft go to a Chiefs or team like that, I think you can see them being super successful. But it's not going to make me get, I don't know, say one of them goes to the Raiders. I don't want that guy. Maybe at the end of the year I'll trade for him when kind of silly season hits, but I don't want running backs on bad teams.
Okay. So let's explore that. Who's the best? Who are the good running backs? Best running backs on bad teams this year for fantasy?
Probably Chuba.
Chuba. Okay, Chuba's a great one. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Brees Hall was a bust. I guess you could say a chain on Miami, but they almost made the playoffs. Raiders had nobody. Steelers, no, they made the playoffs. Brad Chubb wasn't any good. Giants, Tyrone Tracy a bit. Okay, yeah, it seems it tracks.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it's going to change. I think there's been running backs have scored a bunch. I forget where I heard it, but like the stats basically proved out that running backs are scoring way more touchdowns this year compared to previous years. So that's bound to change, like just based on kind of statistics, regress back to the mean. So assuming that changes, then obviously your passing like stats will go back up, passing touchdowns, and then your running backs look like a bust. Like James Cook, I love him, but his numbers weren't great because I mean he shared it with two other people. He was a RB1, but okay, say he doesn't score 16 touchdowns and it comes to 10. Like you can easily see Josh Allen either running for more or passing for more once his weapons are become better. Like he has a bunch of young receiving weapons. You take 6 away and then he's no longer an RB1. Like I think that touchdown regression is something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on, and just I want to still lean into who gets the receiving work as a running back, because that doesn't normally change. Like A-Chain, I'm going to be very high on him just because he proved that he can be almost a receiver on that team.
Yeah, Cook too, right? He had 2 rushing touchdowns 2 years ago, 16. So what is it? It's probably in the middle, right? Like everything. Especially, if the way they use them, right? I was just doing the research. He had like less than 50% of the carries. Ray Johnson is good. He could even be better than Cook, right? Yeah. But let's talk about these games we just watched, right? So Buffalo, Baltimore, that was the main event. And any takeaways from that? I mean, every prop essentially went under. Do you think is Mark Andrews? Is that just too many mistakes? They ship him out. Is Lamar? Does he have the scarlet letter? Did we just decide that Saquon is the MVP, considering Lamar had those bad turnovers and Allen didn't really do that much?
I mean, sure, I'd love to say that. I think, I mean, Saquon's probably the playoff MVP. We're going there at the moment. That game didn't really give me much from like a taking forward. I still think Andrews is a solid tight end. Yeah, he's splitting time more. He had 2 pretty brutal drops in not the best of weather. Like, I don't think that's going to happen again. And I think from everything I've seen about him as a person, I just think he'll bounce back from that. Lamar, I mean, he's still going to be great regular season. So do we really care for fantasy? No. Like, fantasy-wise, it doesn't change where I'm going to draft him. Same thing with Josh Allen. Like, they're willing to throw it more. I do think the weather has had a big impact on how people view a lot of the players. Just when it's 0 degrees Celsius or below 20 Fahrenheit, like it's not a fun, like people will have a bit more drops. The field will be slippery or just due to the field being super tough. And I think that has a bigger impact than maybe we're taking into account. So I'm not going to make any big fantasy judgments off that game, but I mean, I feel for Andrews, and like that was a very well played and close game. Like that's kind of what we expected.
Yeah. It was just shocking. Josh Allen it's not like he ran for 80 yards either, right? I think he ran for maybe 30, passed for 127. They were just running the ball. They got lucky with the turn. It was a great coaching, but if they lost, then it'd be terrible coaching, right? Football is very results based. But yeah, Josh Allen was something too, because I've been looking at the AFC East stats. Right, the run pass ratio was really heavy towards the rush. I think he finishes the number 2 overall QB. But does he drop out of that like top tier next year for fantasy? Because they're clearly taking the ball out of his hands. And his rush yards were half of Lamar's. I think his passing yards were probably a career low, but they also might break out, right? We got Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper. We got all these guys. If they make the leap, maybe he gets back.
I'm still drafting him as a top 3. I think
Yeah.
going into next season, it's Lamar, Hurts, Josh Allen, and I think Jaden Daniels kind of putting himself in that talk as well, just due to the rushing. I think those 4 are a tier on their own. If I'm not getting those 4, I'm shotgunning the position.
Okay. What about but Joe Burrow though, right? I think if you had Burrow and then if you had Burrow and Chase, you won your league, right? That's pretty much a fact.
Yeah, but like every year we see a pocket passer go off. We see it with Burrow. CJ Stroud went off the previous season. Like, I think you can count on those. I think you can count on a Burrow, a CJ Stroud to be a top quarterback like every probably 60% of the time. But then there's going to be those 40% where they're a middling QB1 where it's like, yeah, at the end of the season, they're a startable QB, but they had some dud weeks and they had some like major boom weeks. But if I'm going to spend up on a QB, I'm going to get a rushing floor just because I know that they're going to score each and every week.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, Joe Burrow didn't really have any of the down games, but okay. And then what else? What were the other game? Oh, that Detroit Washington game. Oh my God! So are we officially we would take Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams? He's done enough.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb, I am very curious now that Ben Johnson went there. I'm very curious where he goes in drafts. I think they'll be hyped just because us in the fantasy football industry love to hype up these types of situations. We hyped up the Bears last season. There's a big Bears fan base, and I think they might hype him up again. But he might be a QB if I punt on like those top 4. He might be a guy I target depending where he lands. If he's in a CJ Stroud position, no, I'm not going for him. But if he lands in like the 10 to 15 range, I would definitely take a swing on him.
Okay. Yep. Caleb. And then what? So what about Detroit? Are they going to do anything? Overreact? They're probably not going to. They're not going to fire their coach. But they lose the OC. Trade Goff. Like. What if like they're kind of in the place that the Rams were in when they traded Goff to get Stafford, right? I know the D was broken up, but like Goff was kind of was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, but they still they put up 31 points.
Yeah.
Like if you put up 31 points, at some point it's like, did I do my job as an offense? Maybe. Like I think they love him there in Detroit. I don't think they're going to make that change. From a fantasy standpoint, I am very curious to see if Jahmyr Gibbs kind of continues to take more of the load. Like they very much split it, but like he went off in the playoffs when it was mostly just him, and then Montgomery came back. He was averaging like 10 yards a carry. Like,
yeah.
he could come into the season as RB1. I mean, the offensive coordinator change will be interesting to see who they get. I'd probably be happier if it was an internal hire, but Ben Johnson and their defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn might just like take almost all the assistants too to build out their staff. So
yeah, that's true.
They could be a big letdown team, but because you have Bears are, I think, going to get better. Your Vikings are still pretty good, and then Packers are still a solid team. So like that's a tough division now.
Yeah, one little slip up. But the thing with Gibbs, I think he might be better with Montgomery, right? Kind of like with the chain. Like a chain's not a bell cow back, right? You don't really want him taking those runs between the tackles, right? Give him some outside runs. Give him you probably 15 to 18 touches a game rather than the 20 to 25. But Gibbs, if you do, you keep him in the like stable for half the season, then unleash him. That's really the best case scenario.
Yeah.
But
and I am curious to see if like, I don't know if it's going to become a pattern, but like you see what the Chiefs have done with Travis Kelce, where they literally, like you said, kind of put him in a stable, just stay healthy. I need you on third downs, but like we'll give you a rest. And I wonder if teams are going to start to do that with their kind of aging superstars. Like maybe a Saquon next year, maybe a Derrick Henry. They get another running back, maybe in the draft, or another bruiser that they can take a load off. So then by the end of the season, these playoff teams can then almost lean on these stars more and not have to worry about the kind of just being banged up by the end of the season.
Yeah, you can even do it with QBs, right? I've always been like, have two QBs play. If like Tom Brady should have been playing 3 games, sit in one, right? You have it around the bye. There's no reason to go into some road stadium with some crazy defense.
I don't
But
know if they're ever going to do that just because of how much QBs are paid. I think like running back positions is a bit easier because you can. I mean, you're not paying them 40 to 50 million. So I don't disagree. And if I didn't have like a good QB, I'd be very much for that. I've always been like, it put me in a GM's position. Just give me a rookie quarterback all the time. I never want to pay a quarterback because then I can just build up an O line, build up a D line, have a great rest of the team. And then whenever I have a pretty good rookie quarterback, they can bring me far because the rest of my team's great, or I'm like a middling team.
yeah, the only problem with that is I feel like that's a great strategy to get to where Detroit is, right? And
Yeah.
it's like if you got to go beat Patrick Mahomes, if you're, right, with Tom Brady for 20 years, now we got Patrick Mahomes for 20 years. You're not beating him unless you've got, an equivalent gunslinger, right?
But if you're Detroit for 10 years, you're going to break through to the Super Bowl at some point. Like, if
Yeah.
you can stay that good, especially a dome team, like, and you're built for the dome, you get home field advantage. Like, not every time, like, if you score 31 points a game, you're probably going to do pretty well. You're not, there are times where some crazy rookie quarterback out of nowhere will beat you, but like, I would take that from my team. I mean, I feel like it's kind of,
No, for sure. Detroit's awesome. They're
yeah.
superstars, but they're probably built to lose in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that's how the Eagles are somewhat built too,
Yeah, probably.
where it's
But
like,
if Saquon goes rushes for 200 in the Super Bowl, they're going to win.
yeah, it's like we're all like, recently we are kind of like, all right, top 4 team in the NFC. We'll see how things go. Offensive line has always been great, and they have bodies on the defensive line and keep investing. And like at some point, we just have a high enough floor. The only thing you really worry about is previous season where like kind of vibes just took a, I don't basically someone just took a dump on the vibes in the locker room and then everyone hated each other. But other than that, like you build a pretty big floor. And I mean, yeah, Lions, I'm just a big fan of, if we have a stud offensive line, I trust a lot of people on that offense.
Do you think the vibes are good in Philly right now? I feel like they're winning, but like, it's one ball, you're supposed to move it around, right? I don't like in the NBA, if somebody was scoring 60 points a game, I don't think, everybody wouldn't be super excited about it, even if they were winning.
Yeah, I think you like
The
some
O line,
Bucks.
the O line's happy. The defense is happy.
I think there's a lot of like clenched butts. I just think like everyone's happy right now. You're winning. It looks fun, but like, okay, say Jalen Hurts has a poor game. Saquon doesn't rush for 150 yards, and then Jake Elliott misses another few field goals. We're gonna lose. Like it's bound to happen. So it's, I mean, yeah, we've been lucky to get this far. I mean, I think we've won, but it's like health has been on our side, and we've just had a pretty good draw with our team being great in the weather that we've been given.
Yeah, built for cold weather football. But so the other side, what do we do with Jaden Daniels? Is he, because we don't want to make the same mistake we did last year with CJ Stroud, right? Everyone anointed him. He was great, rookie, prodigy, blah, blah, blah. Won a playoff game on the road. Now Jaden Daniels doing the exact same thing. But, is he better? Or are we just doomed to repeat our own mistakes?
For fantasy, yes, he's better because he runs.
True.
If you take CJ Stroud's numbers from this past year, add like 40 yards a game rushing, and then like a quarter of a rushing touchdown, even make it like a tenth of a rushing touchdown, he's a top 10 QB pretty easily.
So next year, super flex, snake draft. Would you take Jaden Daniels first overall? Because that's kind of the direction we're. Especially if they add a weapon. What if they had like Tyreek Hill?
I still think Lamar.
Okay.
I like Jaden Daniels is in. I mean, I think Lamar, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, and Hurts, and I think it's in that order.
Okay.
But I do think there's a drop off after those four, from a fantasy standpoint. Obviously, Pat Mahomes still the best actual QB, but from a fantasy standpoint, I'm taking those four.
Okay. What about like dark horse QBs? We just love talking QBs. Like Drake May, right? Is he going to get overhyped, or is he going to sneak under the radar, get him in that Baker zone where he ends up, putting top 10 value because he's going to run the ball?
He's somebody I take a shotgun on. I like Caleb more just from a fantasy standpoint. I do like Drake May as a quarterback more than Caleb, just looking at their previous season. Bo Nix, I'm definitely into. He kind of gives me Baker vibes. It runs a little bit more. So I think there's definitely room there to, like, I think he'll be a value, especially if he's like QB 15 to 20 being drafted. I'll pick him up there almost all the time. To me, he's like the perfect second quarterback in a super flex. Just because of that rushing.
It seems like it's QB's shotgun approach, right? Baker's going to slide again, right? Like there's all these guys slides, but you get Baker and Brock for nothing, and then your team looks it's Saquon and Justin Jefferson, and it's just so double onesie punt. You're thinking?
Maybe. I mean, Anthony Richardson, he's like now to me like the Ben Simmons of fantasy QBs. I just like I'll still probably go there, assuming he gets the starting job. Yeah, it's an open, like they're having a competition, but like why? Either your team's gonna suck with him, and then you get a new quarterback, or you put in a Joe Flacco and you're middling, and like you learn nothing about your quarterback position and don't get anywhere. That's
split the locker room.
Yeah, like I would just go with Richardson. It'll be ugly, but he can go 5 for 20 for like 150 yards and a touchdown because he had two bombs and then he rushed a little bit. Like for fantasy, that's great. I don't care about completions percentage.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, what else? What else we got? Want to touch on here? We'll go a few more minutes.
I mean, who do you like in the games?
I mean, I think it's like I keep seeing the Marvel thing in Infinity Wars where everyone's just coming out of the circle cheering for Buffalo, right? Every team that lost or is out, they're Bills fans. I just think KC's too good. I mean, like, how do you beat Mahomes? There's a sliver, right? The defense is good. Mahomes isn't going to make mistakes. They got the weapons. They got the coaching. They're at home. Buffalo's going to try and probably do the same thing they just did, which probably isn't going to work. Right. What you can do in Buffalo isn't going to work in KC. Yeah, Buffalo could win, but they got to do the triple bullseye darts, right? They got to get right. The refs apparently love calling the roughing the passers, so they got to avoid getting screwed by the refs, which isn't going to
Josh
happen.
Allen's pretty good at that too, though. Like I think that game is the game of QBs who are very good at getting like flags called on for them.
Okay, yeah, true, but he's got to not make mistakes, and then the luck, like the deflected pass that falls into the defender, right? So you got to go 3 for 3 with the stuff that you can't really control, and that's going to be tough. But I'm obviously cheering for Buffalo. A lot of my friends are Bills fans, and I don't know. Nobody wants the Eagles to win. It's stupid. They're ugly. They grind it. They're rooting football. Jaden Daniels is everyone's darling, but what 30th ranked Rushdie? I mean, this game was built for Saquon to go crazy. So,
yeah, I mean, I think being like a realist, not an Eagles fan, yeah, I hear you. Like, Commanders have been more fun to watch in the playoffs.
Yeah, Eagles games are
But like,
unwatchable.
yeah, who do you think can beat the Chiefs more?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
kind of like that's the one thing. I think the Eagles have a better playbook. The Commanders is just hope Jaden Daniels carries the team and something weird happens on defense.
It's worked so far.
It has. It's just the likelihood that it continues for 2 more games is lower.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Andy Reid versus Cliff in the Super Bowl. No, they're Cinderella. They're on borrowed time. But And no, Philly could totally beat KC. It's just like give the ball to Barkley 30 times. He's getting 4 yards a pop, and every fifth run is for 30 plus. So
Yep. Yeah, I heard a bunch of people say like, find me that medicine that Pat Mahomes gets every playoffs, where he sprains an ankle and then is perfectly fine the next week, and then just put that right into Hurts' knee.
The alien deer antler spray or something. But yeah, it'll be fun, and then football's over, and then draft, and then all of a sudden it's up again. Are you excited? Do you get sadder on this time of year, or do you can just pivot to hoops?
I mean, I love like I mostly pivot to like college and NBA draft stuff. That's that's probably my favorite part of NBA is like seeing how younger players get in and then how they do and perform. So I do some of that for Sports Ethos on the draft side. That's kind of like that's just stuff I enjoy doing. I mean, obviously my team's still in it, so I'm pretty darn pumped.
Yeah,
And
of course, of course.
if they lose, I will be quite sad, and it's also stressful just because I live closer to the Washington D.C. area than compared to the Philly area, so I have way more Commanders friends and people a lot of people I work with, they all know I'm Eagles and they're Commanders, so it's just like I don't feel like hearing it if they win. Like if we win, there's not much to be said.
You're supposed
Commanders
to win.
win, it's like I just hear it for ages.
So okay, yeah. So it's one of those winning's not as good as winning doesn't feel as good or as bad as losing feels, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah, it's like I'd rather like I want to not lose this more than I want to win this.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, well, best of luck. I mean, that's it for us today. Not that much to cover. I think we're gonna do one more show next week. Then we're cutting down to once or maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. Nobody cares about Pro Bowl or whatever. We'll figure it out. But we're gonna go to one show a week. But so that's it. We got no Jason this week. So Brian, I guess good luck. I'm not really cheering for you, but I support you.
I appreciate that, and thank you.
Okay. Oh, I gotta do this one. All right. Thanks, guys. So check out us next Monday. We'll be doing another pod.